Okay, I think we can start. Do you all see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. So let me just go and present more. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thanks Claudia and Lucy for joining us. This is, as we announced, the last EaSI webinar of this for last year. So it's really nice. It's really nice to have Adie and BNP Paribas joining us for a topic that it's the topic will stay relevant whether we regardless of the program under which we are having the webinar. So it's really good that we are concluding it under these with these premises. So let me just briefly present the EaSI program, which is indeed the program under which we are having this event today. The EaSI Technical Assistance Program stands for Employment and Social Innovation. It's a program which is financed and managed by the European Commission, specifically by DGM, which is the Directorate General for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion. So as you can see from this summary slide, the EaSI program was composed by two strands: the financial component part and the technical assistance part, which is the one we are under today. The technical assistance part was handled in a consortium by Frankfurt School, which was the project leader, MFC, and us, EMN, as far as the training and events went, and MFR, which is the microfinance rating, as far as the code of good conduct assessment were involved. The financial part on the other side was handled by the EIF. So you can see here, I'm sure that everyone is really much experienced with them by now, but we have the financial instrument and the EaSI grant. So the EaSI guarantee, the EaSI capacity building investment services, and the EaSI grants. So I'll just be very brief because, as I said, the program is actually ending tomorrow. So this is right on time for the an appropriate conclusion. The technical assistance strand was, let's say, divided into three components, which I briefly mentioned before, which are the capacity building services, which were destined only for selected beneficiaries of the project. The European Code of Good Conduct assessments, which again were only dedicated for the selected beneficiaries. And then the bigger component, which is the dissemination of best practices, which is the strand under which we are under today, and it includes the webinars, the study visits, the help desk services, which were indeed open to a wider audience and a wider public, so not only for the EaSI technical assistance beneficiaries. Again, in this slide, you can see that the project ran from 2018 to July 2022, so it's ending today. And we know that the next program will be under InvestEU, so will be managed by the European Investment Bank. And it will be, of course, EMN will be timely on communicating all the updates that we will have on the next round of the program. But so far, we just know that indeed it will be managed by the EIB. So these are a few emails that you can contact in case you want more information on the past or on the future program, but we will share the presentation with you after the event. Here, like in this slide, you can see the different way in which you can interact with us and with the panelists, so Claudia and Lucy. You can either use the chat, and the chat you can use it to address singular individual participants or panelists or the whole audience. But we encourage you, if you want to pose questions, that you use the Q&A section, because so that we are sure that everyone can see them, so us and the other participants as well. And yeah, with no further ado, I will introduce you the two panelists that we have today. So you all know that the topic today is fundraising, specifically private fundraising. So we have the two angles of fundraising, which is the funded, the financed, which is represented by Adie, specifically by Lucy Pichavant. Sorry if I pronounce your name in the wrong way, Lucy. Lucy is a partnership officer at Adie, and indeed she takes care of everything that goes with partnership and private partnerships and fundraising at the local and national level at Adie. She presented this topic in a study visit last year, but it was for 12 people. So we are really happy that today we are broadening this subject to a wider audience, also because we are recording the session, and the session will be available afterwards for everyone that is interested. And then we have the funder, the financier part, which is represented by Claudia Belli. I'm sure everyone knows her because she represents the funded part, but she's also really active in microfinance. She's head of advocacy and microfinance at BNP Paribas. Claudia, I hope this is the correct title because I know that you are covering different heads, and I hope this is the
Perfect.
latest. Yeah, perfect.
Perfect, no problem.
So yeah, we know that BNP Paribas supports microfinance across Europe in many different ways, and today Claudia will indeed tackle on the ways they support Adie, but microfinance and in a wider angle. And yeah, this is again an email that you can use to contact EMN regarding questions, but I think we can jump into the interesting contact with Lucy right away. Lucy, the floor is yours.
Yes, it's just that it seems that my connection is not so good, so I hope that you will hear and see everything.
We can see the presentation.
Okay, great. So I'm Lucie and I'm private partnership officer since more than 1 year now at Adie. Just maybe a few words about Adie. We are a French NGO which has 3 main missions. The first is to finance those who don't have access to bank with microcredits. The second mission is to support and coach entrepreneurs through their entrepreneurial journey. And the third is to advocate for the right to economic initiative and the right for entrepreneurs. And so here I'm going to talk about fundraising and how to collect private donation. First, I just wanted to talk briefly about Adie economic model. Our budget is around 60 million euros for this year, and it is based on 3 pillars. The first one is the loan margin. The second one, which is the most important, is public funds. And the third one is based on volunteering and private donations. So you can see that we have various ways to finance our activities. And maybe if you have some questions that I'm not going to answer during the presentation, we can talk about this at the end of the presentation. A few words about Adie fundraising team. We are 7 people focusing on fundraising here at Adie. And we focus on 3 specific targets, which are the public partners, such as Europe, the French state, the regions or the departments. We also focus on private partners, mostly on companies and foundations, and also on individual donation, which is composed by family foundations and private donors, such as particular people like you and me. Then I wanted to do a focus on the SDGs because it is very important for us. And in 2020, we realized with BNP Paribas a study to determine how Adie contributes to these SDGs. And this study shows that we mostly contribute to 3 SDGs. The first SDG, which is no poverty. And because thanks to Adie's actions, we give access to resources for vulnerable people. the SDG 8, which is decent work and economic growth, because we develop entrepreneurship and we promote access to banking services. And the SDG 10, which is reduced inequalities, because Adie promotes social, economic, and political inclusion. It is important for us to work on SDGs because every types of partners are very interested about them, and they want to have like some focus on specific SDGs. So maybe you can also do the work for your nonprofits on what are the SDGs you are focusing on. Then we are going to talk a little bit about each type of partners and the way we work with them. A few words on on public partners, because they represent the largest part of Adie budget. It's around 43% of our budget and around a bit more than 28 million euros last year. This important contribution from this type of partners is mostly due to our advocacy work and the fact that we contribute to reduce unemployment, and the fact that we are developing entrepreneurship and promoting social inclusion. And here on the right, you can see the repartition of public funds that we are receiving. And you can see that we have various types of public partners, the Europe, the regions, the French states, but also departments or communes, which are cities. I'm not going to develop this any longer because I think that each country has its specificities, and I think that for some countries it's more difficult to collect this type of funds. But just to know that it exists and that in France it is very developed. Then on private partners, which are the main subject today, they represent 15% of our budget and around 5.5 million euros. And on the right, you can see that we have some big partners, and you can see that BNP Paribas is our main partner with more than 1 million euros donated each year for a program on deprived neighborhoods and the development of entrepreneurships in these specific areas. But you can also see that we have a lot of smaller partners with foundations and companies that are really important for us and for our economic model, because it helps us develop various types of funds. And if one is missing, we can count on the others. So it's very important for us to have various partners. And we wanted to do a focus on this slide to illustrate the diversity and the different ways to collaborate between a company and a nonprofit. First, we have the corporate sponsorship, which might be the most common type of partnership, which is the financial support to a nonprofit. For example, as I told you before, BNP Paribas gives us 1.3 million euros each year. But we can also develop other type of partnerships that are also important to highlight. We have, for example, societal innovation, which consists in co-creating a solution to a specific problem. For example, we have developed a few years ago, with the French car company Renault, car repair program, which is called Renault Garage Solidaire for our entrepreneurs. We also develop economic cooperation The idea here is to provide a common response to a social need. For example, our microcredit offer in France, we have developed it with the French banks, most of the banks here in France. But we also have other examples such as microinsurance. We have developed some specific offer with insurance companies here in France. And finally, responsible practices. Here, the idea is that the nonprofits shares its knowledge with the company and its employees to contribute to business changes and to more responsible practices. And as an example, a few years ago, we trained some advisors from La Banque Postale on how to work with vulnerable people. So it was very interesting to work with them on how they can manage to work with this specific type of people. And so here you can see that there are different ways to work with companies and that it's necessary to go beyond sponsorship to co-construct projects with the private sector and see that these projects are often multi-faced and mix different types of approaches, as you can see with BNP Paribas, for example, which are represented in each type of partnership. Also, this slide illustrates that it is important to think partnerships according to a win-win logic. Where both sides of the partnership can have common interests and have also complementary goals and resources. Here you can see the magic square to develop a win-win partnership. I'm not going to develop all types of sides of this magic square, but maybe just two examples on the human resources issues. Maybe think that for a company, create a partnership with a nonprofit can motivate its employees and attract new talents. And for a nonprofit, it allows access to new knowledge and sometimes to staff also, thanks to volunteering particularly. Here we have developed some mentorship programs with some of our partners, and also if you want to talk more about mentoring and volunteering, we can talk about this at the end of the presentation. And also regarding to economic performances, sponsorship can appear only as an expense for a company, but most of the time it has a positive impact on economic performances because it shows commitments and it gives new resources and attracts new talents, as I told before. So it's important to think the partnership as a win-win partnership. Now, how you can convince companies to become your partners. At Adie, we use a lot corporate social responsibility, CSR arguments to convince and create new partnerships. And we focus on two main arguments. The first is community involvement. The fact that if you invest in our actions, it will encourage local development and reduce unemployment and informal activities. And the other arguments we often use, it's consumer issues. And the fact that if you invest in Adie action, it will have a positive impact on society by promoting social and professional inclusion. And therefore, it will have some positive impact in the company's reputation. And by using these arguments, you will show the companies that supporting your organization is a way to develop their CSR policy and develop concrete actions. Also, to convince company, we used our social impact. Every 3 years, we measure our impacts and our utility, and particularly on 3 indicators. The first one is the sustainability rates of our entrepreneurs' activities. And this rate is higher than the national rate, so it's a good way to show the impact of our support. The second one is the exclusion score to make sure that we target excluded people. And the last one is the number of jobs that we created thanks to our activities. And we also measure the social return on investment of our activities. And we have calculated that €1 donated to Adie's action brings back €253 to the community after 2 years. And to calculate that, we had the help of a company that is focusing on impact and on social return on investment, but it's very important for us. And the idea here is to demonstrate that our action has a positive impact on entrepreneurs and on society, and that if you invest on Adie action, you will have some positive return. And then to conclude on how to convince company, we also have developed some thematic projects to create a unique partnership and to adapt the projects to the company's specificities. We have developed some projects based on specific groups, such as women or young people, for example, and on specific territories. We have developed some projects on deprived neighborhoods, rural areas, but also on specific regions or cities, depending on the company implementation or its CSR priorities. And this thematic projects enables us to differentiate ourselves from other organizations and to create a unique partnership. So it's very important for us to create unique projects for our partners. And finally, about individual donations, just a few words. In 2020, we have collected €500,000, from 2,000 donors, and we have a diverse type of donors. We have some big donors that are donating more than €20,000 every year, but we also have some smaller donors that are also very important for our economic models. And so thank you, and I think that the question will be at the end of the 2 presentations, so I'm not going to ask for the question now.
Indeed. Thank you, Lucie. Thank you very much. It's really impressive to see what Adie does, and hopefully it can be inspired. If not replicated, it can be inspiring for other smaller institutions. So I will share Claudia's slides and give the word to her. Can you see them?
Sure, I do.
Okay, so
yes,
Claudia. Thank you. Welcome everybody. So very glad to be here with you today, and thanks Lucie for what you're doing, because actually I'm going to explain the point of view of a financer of a financial institution, but we can't do anything if you are not there, if the microfinance institution is there. But you already highlighted the key elements of the what, the why, and the how can be funded on microfinance institutions from the eyes of a financial institution. So the idea that you see in the first page is, it will be on the second page, it will be immediately that, of course, we all know there is a huge need for inclusive finance. You see that there is still a huge gap on the third page, a huge gap on the inclusion of the people, which happens mainly in the emerging markets where there is even a lack of account. We don't see the lack of account in Europe, but in Europe we can see the lack of financial health and the lack of possibilities that people find to do their entrepreneurial project. So on our point of view is that if you are a financial institution, whatever, could be bank, insurance, any kind of financial institutions, you need to think about that, and you need to say, what can I do? What can I do to work on the topic of financial inclusion and to propose solutions that are going to create something better for the end beneficiaries. So I believe this is something very a question that many or all financial institutions have, and it's something that we have also, and of course we try to work on that and to propose the solutions. So the solution for us is that we decided to tackle financial inclusion through all business angles. And one of the business angle is through the microfinance, which means really how can we finance, how can we work and enhance the microfinance institutions. So in our point of view, there are other ways to do financial inclusion. I can briefly say about them, but one of our point of view is those microfinance institutions are doing something that we are not capable to do. The sense is, if there are still people who cannot have a loan for their enterprise, who cannot have a loan for their mobility, who cannot have financial education, we're going to do the maximum we can, but if we can't, then the microfinance institution, maybe they can. So it's really the way to do something we cannot do. And therefore, on the financing side, we think microfinance gives a very good solution. And on the asset side, on the other side, we are working with Nickel, which is for the ones who are in Spain and in France, they know it is one of the largest fintech who propose a bank account, an IBAN, and a credit card based on funding which are given. So you deposit 20, 30, 40 euro at a tobacco shop in France, or at a lottery shop in Spain, or soon in Belgium at a library, and then you have an account. So for us, these are the two complementary ways to do financial inclusion. And on the extra financial ratings agencies that we really cherish, because they are doing a very precise and audited work, they say that we achieve 100 on 100, which is very unusual on the topic of financial inclusion. So this gives us the idea that it's a good way to work on it. But then, of course, there are, at any moment we can enhance them. Then the second way for us as a bank to work on financial inclusion is that we said we have to measure, because if you do not measure, you cannot improve. And so we started to say, although we do not do micro lending from ourselves directly, we go through the microfinance institutions, let's put ourselves a target of micro borrowers reached indirectly through our lending. And this is how we reach the funding done through the lending. So we want to increase the lending to microfinance institutions. We want to reach then, therefore, indirectly from the 220,000 beneficiaries up to 350,000 beneficiaries, which means we want to increase our lending. So this is the why. And then the how for us is really providing lending. We understood long time ago, already 32 years ago, we understood that microfinance institutions, they are doing this wonderful job, this great job. But one of the most difficult things is getting the funding, because unless you have become a bank, you MFI, unless you MFI have become a bank, you are not a bank. You cannot refinance yourself in the LIBOR, in the interbanking market. And so getting the funding is really the nerve, is really the key element. And this is why the reason we have also this conference. So getting the funding, because your matière première, your asset is the money. But then, therefore, because of this, if you are a financial institution, a bank which is not used to microfinance, then you can be astonished when you see the balance sheet of a microfinance institution, because you consider them not as a bank, so it's a corporate. And then if it is a corporate, wow, the leverage is so huge. So you really need to have an awareness of what it is, microfinance institution, how their balance sheet is, how they work. So which is many times just a company, many times as a corporate, any kind of financial institution without the label, I am a financial institution. So they need money. And so you need financiers knowledgeable on how to lend and how to study a balance sheet of a microfinance institution. So we want to do it because it's needed. How to do it is really creating an expertise on microfinance, creating a willingness to work on microfinance, because if you cannot create an expertise if everybody doesn't do it. But then also demonstrating that working with microfinance, it's not a matter of subsidies. It can be. You have seen what Adie has just said is, it is a matter. It's fantastic to have some subsidies, because you need subsidies for so many things, for development, for education. But you cannot survive only with the funding. When you receive one of funding, you can receive 100 when you receive one of subsidies, you can receive 100 of loans or investments. So on our side, we decide to work on all the three layers. Like for instance, for Adie, they receive kind of 1 million of subsidies from foundation. They receive kind of 20 millions of loans from us, from the retail bank in France. And they receive also a kind of 10 million of investments through the investment funds. And we're going to go into it. So you see the funding strategies are different. But when you are an MFI, so we can tackle all the different funding strategies, the three ways: equity, lending, and subsidies. And when you are on the other side, financial institutions, you can also work with the different business models and see how to embed into their business models the different angles. So if you go to the next slide, you will see how it gives you just an example of how we are working on the different things. So I'm just going beyond France and looking into it as a financial institutions who does microfinance across the world. And then you will see that, for instance, on the asset management side, we have created impact funds. And the impact funds invest into impact companies, social enterprises, and microfinance. And why can they do it? It's because first, based in France, we have fantastic law, which is the law that says the solidarity funds can invest 90% in listed companies and 5 to 10% into non-listed companies, provided that they are NGOs or they are they are social enterprises. So this is a great law that we advocate for having this law all across Europe, because it's a fantastic tool that provides so many resources to microfinance and to social enterprises. Then those solidarity funds, they invest, and then once they have the fund, which is created by the group, then they have to find clients. And the clients work, as you said, as you in Adie says, based on the impact, because you cannot say, I want to do it because it's creating good, if you do not have the proof that this good is created. And so on our side, our solidarity funds, they do twice a year a performance report, a social performance report, in which you see here, for instance, the result of the microfinance angle, which is microfinance and international solidarity. They finance Adie, but not only, they finance Oxford, and they finance Microfinance Solidaire, other actors of microfinance based in France because of this law. But then they have an impact internationally or in France. And then through our impact measurement, we gather and we can see what the microfinance institutions have been financed, what they have been done. So you see here, 22,000 projects, entrepreneurial projects have been developed through those microfinance institutions, and 83% of them are leading, of these projects are surviving after 3 years, which is really the tackles of when an enterprise can go really confidently into the future or not. So you see, measuring is very important, measuring the impact, proving that this impact is useful. And based on this impact useful, then asset management can sell these funds and can sell these funds to everybody, not only to institutional investors, also to people like us. If you are in France and if you have an account, you can say, I want my money to do something good, and you can have a social business fund, a social business impact fund, but there are many social business funds in which your money is doing good. So great law, which is the France, but then behind that, great microfinance providers, and then in between, a provider who creates a fund and then who sells the fund to those who want to create something good with their money. This is the idea. So you see, this is the investment portion. When you go to the next slide, you can see about the lending portion. When you say lending, any lending has to be repaid, of course. Right? It works as the level of a microfinance, and it works, of course, at the level of a financial institution. And so first, the projects shall be good. So the basics, the financials shall be good. And then, of course, the social performance shall be good. We talked already about social performance. Let's go to the basics. Basics on our side is about lending. We lend really 1 million up to 15 million in emerging countries, and 1 million up to 30 million in Europe or in the US to microfinance institutions. And being able to do this is because we are going to be repaid. Our average maturity is 2 years. We only do local currencies. I believe that local currency, it's a key element, because we cannot imagine to give them the risk of the foreign exchange. So it's good to provide the local currency. But doing this, it can also create a potential cross-selling business. You can provide forex swaps to those MFIs. So one idea to talk to your financiers, why should they finance you, is because if you are an MFI, it's because you have good financials, a good social performance, and then you can provide other kinds of business, the lending, the foreign exchange, the swaps. In some countries, even like in India, there can be IPOs, the international public offerings. So they stop being a non-listed company and they go into the market. And also there are side businesses related to biodiversity. Now we are working together with the GEF, the Global Environmental Facility, and together with other experts in microfinance and in green microfinance and in biodiversity. We're working on the creation, which has just been launched, of JUST Institute, which is an institute dedicated to helping the lenders to microfinance borrowers in the agriculture, so to smallholder farmers, to increase biodiversity. And this institute is going to help the financiers to create a portfolio of biodiversity proof, so which means providing all the tools behind in order to create more biodiversity. And then based on this, the financiers like us can create sustainability linked loans, which are loans in which the the margins can be increased or decreased on the basis of sustainability impacts. You see, so what I mean is that you can convince, if you are an MFI, you can convince in financial institutions through many ways, and each time has to be a win-win. So this is another very, very good point you highlighted, Lucy. It has to be a win-win. So for us, financial institutions, it is a win-win because we're not losing money. Eventually, in this case, we earn all the costs, of course. In our case, we want to recover all the costs, the travel costs, the capital costs, and the risks costs. But then there are other financiers who go beyond. But these are the basic. You really have to sell a project in which it's not pure philanthropy. It's really, it has to go really beyond. It has to be a business for good, a business with a positive impact. And then there is also this side business, which is not really a business, but which is about pro bono, volunteering, awareness. This is also immaterial, but it's also very important because thanks to positive impact business and thanks to NGOs who do microfinance or social, any kind of other social impact business, it could be other kind of social enterprises, you can involve, engage your own persons, your own employees. And by doing so, you increase the motivation, you increase the attractiveness of your company, and you increase also your clients. Your clients are going to be better also because they are going to receive all the forces, the skills of your employees. So it's a win-win on three sides. And then the last point, and then we're going to questions. We also have to remember that funding raising, so is the money, as we said, but it also all this extra financial money. So it can be pro bono. It can be those long-term pro bono, like, again, I'm Italian, so I can say very good things about France without being tackled of chauvinism. But they have also another wonderful law that we can advocate for the rest of Europe, which is the law Aliagon, that says that a company can provide one person full-time for 1 year, up to 2 years, being paid by the bank. And this is received as it was a gift. So it receives the same things as a gift. So deductibility, tax-free, deductibility, etc. This is a great law, has to be replicated all over. But although there is this deductibility thing, we can also do providing full-time persons in other countries. We're providing the CEO of Permicro and the CEO of MicroStart in Italy and in Belgium, respectively. And this is also a very good way to provide resources. So resources are money, but it's also people. Is also talents, is also talents in emissions, talents in a pro bono mission. For instance, what we do is we work with series and we train talents on the SPA4, the social performance study, and then we send those talents to provide the social performance. But then there is even more than this. You can provide a way to decrease their marketing. If you are a financer and you provide the clients, then it decreases the cost of marketing. So it's as much valuable as if you provide other kind of money. How can you do those? So, for instance, I'm quoting the case of Permicro in Italy, some agencies of some selling points of Permicro, they are hosted in BNL, our bank, in BNL in Italy. So a client can go out from a door, maybe sad because his request has been refused, and can go into the other door just behind that, where his request or her request is going to be accepted. So this fact of providing the clients from one to another, it's a great tool. So in the case of Permicro, 40% of their clients are coming from financial institutions who provide the clients who are not served. So it's a great way to decrease all the marketing costs. And it's a win-win because sometimes these clients after are going to open their account into the bank. So it's a win-win. You have each time to think, is it good for both? It's like in a negotiation. Each time we do a negotiation, whatever it is, the negotiation has to be win-win. Otherwise, it's not a good negotiation. So I would stay with this, and then we are free for questions. The key elements is really funding is different, philanthropy, lending, equity, distributing the investments. We didn't mention this, but of course, distributing funds who are invested into microfinance is also a help to provide funding to microfinance indirectly. And then also all the non-money, but which convert into money. So sharing clients, hosting into the spaces, and providing pro bonos. So I'm happy to receive questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Claudia. It was really interesting to see indeed the different ways in which microfinance can be supported. And we can also say that we will have the example in June as Adie and BNP will host the next European Microfinance Network conference. So we are the concrete example. So I will now open the floor to questions. I see that we already have a few, but I encourage you all to write in the chat or in the Q&A, and you can also raise your hand and we can unmute you so you can pose your questions by talking, so with your voice. So I will start with the first question that I see. I see that the first one is for Lucie, so from Charlotte. Hi, Charlotte. Thank you for joining us. So the first question is, Adie, when you receive public funds for specific projects, how long time do the projects run for?
I think that it depends on the partner, but most of the time it's pluriannual funds. Mostly, I would say like projects that last 3 years. Most of the time, I'm not like specialist in public funds. I think kind of for states funds mostly, and it depends like with regions and cities. We have every year a new topic or a new founding, but we kind of know that we will have the same funding every year because of our missions, and as I told before, the fact that we reduce unemployment thanks to entrepreneurships, and so we know that every year we are going to have more or less the same amount.
Thank you, Lucia. Charlotte, I hope this answered your questions. Otherwise, you can let us know.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. And the second question, always from Charlotte, it's for Claudia. So it's a long one. I hope I will read it in the right way. So
yeah,
Claudia,
because I can't read it. Yeah,
I'll read it. Yeah.
Yes, I don't see it.
Yeah, Claudia, are the loans run through the regular credit process in the bank, or is it separate process more defined from the willingness to contribute to MFIs?
Oh, it's a very good question, and it's a perfectly regular process, which is somehow the difficulty and somehow the strength. The idea is that it is really we don't have a separate envelope. We don't have we're not running through a foundation. We're really running with a balance sheet of the bank. So the good point is that we're not limited by anything, because our limit is really the capacity to find good MFIs and to fund them after that.
Yeah.
And so it's a perfect credit committee. We have a specific policy, we call it a specific policy for microfinance, that has been approved already more than 10 years ago, and that we renew each 3 years, in which we state the why, the how, and the when, and the maximum limits. For instance, we say for emerging markets, the maximum amount cannot go beyond 15 million, and is just dedicated in certain countries. We say we don't want to be among the first financiers. We have to be among we can be up to third financial, but not beyond. And the lending has to be up to 1 to 3 years, not maximum, etc. So this specific credit policy. And the only difference in the credit process, which goes through financial institutions, so it's a credit process led by financial institutions. The only specificity is that we also provide a study of the social performance. So the study of social performance can go up to showing the impact study, if this MFI has done an impact study, or if they don't, we have to provide the SPI, the social performance indicator, as I mentioned, because it's well known, has been done or is being done by more than 400 MFIs in the world. And since it's difficult and costly, we also provide, if necessary, we provide volunteers who can go and in 1 week, they do the audit. And these are really completely volunteer and in a win-win way. We train these volunteers. These are the talents of the group. So the ones who are selected to become the next managers of the group. And so we are also, it's a win-win for us because we are going to provide inside their heart the idea that they can do business and they can do good. So you see, it's a full, but in the end, it's a standardized credit process.
Thank you, Claudia. And yeah, okay, the next question I think you already answered, but is how important are social performance indicators when looking for funds? I think by now we know that it's very important.
Yes, it's very important,
Yeah.
but it's very important, but it's also because we have to prove that. I mean, whenever this is reflected in every business, whenever you do something and you state, we do it because it's very good, you can be attacked immediately by everybody who says, aha, you're not going, you say you so, but it's not really good. Look what they are doing. So whenever we talk about impact for good, positive impact business, you have immediately much more risk of reputation, which is not only so. Then you are putting together the financial risk and the reputational risk. And so having those institutions making really a study of social performance or social impact is really extremely important, because otherwise you can say, well, or before that we can do an audit, but an audit that really goes into that, because otherwise you are really losing. If we lose one deal because of reputation, then we risk the whole 350 million lending and investment into microfinance. We cannot put at risk so many people beyond, so many micro borrowers beyond, with 350 million of lending and borrowers. So it's really very, very, very important.
Yeah. Thank you, Claudia. I also see that Charlotte is saying thank you. So both of you answered her question. And we now have another question for Lucy, which is, how do you prepare your thematic projects before having the funds or after getting the funds?
I would say before getting the funds. The idea is to have a first meeting with the company to really understand what are the topics it is more interested about, and the CSR areas the company wants to develop. And then we kind of co-creating the thematic project. Like if we see that the company is located in a specific area, and the question of employment or vulnerability is important for this company, we will focus on the activity on this territory, because it would have like more impact and it would be more tangible for the company. And we could also develop some volunteering or some like day to discover the agency that we have in this territory. So it would be more tangible and more concrete for the company.
Okay, thank you. So the target is the company usually, and then you co-create it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That's clear. And okay, so it's a really interesting topic. We see it from the question. We have another one for Claudia, which is, you mentioned the 3 sources of fund. How often do you see equity participation deals? I am asking, as I am working with Islamic financial institutions, we cannot accept that finance at less is 0%.
Okay, so on the equity side, yeah, I didn't went deeply into that, but it's because because Adie is an association, so association cannot have equity, so the equity is represented by all the profits. But of course, many other like Permicro has equity, and we are 20% equity providers, shareholder. Microstart that we co-created with Adie in Luxembourg. We are the main shareholder. Same for Microlux in Luxembourg, Microstart, and we both created them with Adie, and we are main shareholders for both of them. And then equity can be done through impact funds. So, for instance, Helenos, which invests into the equity in microfinance in Europe, in which we invested 1 million. Or, for instance, Micro Europe, this startup that has been created very recently in February in Spain with the help of the CEOs of the largest MFIs in Europe, that aims to provide equity to the smallest MFIs. So yes, it's very important to provide equity. In Islamic finance, I know that we are not doing Islamic lending for microfinance, but the bank does Islamic lending in Malaysia, for instance, or in the Emirates. So, well, it's just, if I understand well, my Islamic finance is really just putting all the interests in the beginning, the amount of the loan, and then it's another credit profile. In the end, it's more a structure than anything. But well, if the question is, we do financiers work on equity? The answer is yes, but be taking consideration each time that the equity costs a lot for a financial institution. So for a VC, for a venture capital, it's another story, it's a different thing. But for a financial institution, the equity is very, very costly, so it's much more difficult to receive. But anyway, in our side, we have decided an envelope of 200 million. In this case, it is an envelope, 200 million euro dedicated to natural capital in financial institutions who provide microfinance, and to social enterprises dedicated to other kind of inclusion issues. So can be done, but it's much more difficult, and the amount are going to become smaller.
Yes. Thank you, Claudia. I think it's clear, and thank you, Mohamed, for the question. Feel free to follow up if you have more questions on the topic on others. I see one more question from Lucy and then no others. So in the meantime, if you have other questions, you can think about it and write them. In the meantime, I will read the one from Lucy, which is, how much time and HR resources do you dedicate to fundraising? Okay, so if I maybe complement the question, I think what I see as EMN and working with microfinance is that a lot of institutions are small, so I don't think a lot of institutions can afford to have a fundraising team. So we saw with Lucy that you have 7 people at Adie, which is quite impressive on fundraising. I guess maybe the question is if these people are focusing on fundraising only, or if you do other projects. And yes.
Yes, we are 7 people dedicated only on fundraising. So we have the prospection part where we are looking for new partners, doing some meetings to present Adie and try to get some interest and maybe some funds. And we also have a lot of time that is dedicated to managing projects and make sure that everything is doing right, and that we will have some positive impact and some positive results to give to our partners. And I would say that It depends on the time of the year, but at the beginning of the year, we spend a lot of time doing the reporting of the projects we realized, and also answer to call for proposals at the beginning of the year, and then during the middle of the year, we mostly focused on managing the existing partners, and at the end of the year, we also do a second part of fundraising and try to find some new partners. But I would say that it's maybe 25% of the time looking for new partners and have meetings with them, and the other 75, it's mostly about managing the existing partners.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. And this is my interest. That you just said that you focus fundraising on specific times of the year. So do you think there is a time of the year where it's more efficient?
No, it's mostly because these are the time of the year that companies and foundation have some funds to distribute.
Yeah.
And so I don't really know why they choose this period, but most of the time in France, it's during the January to March, and then September to the end of November, maybe. But when it's not this period, most of the time, foundation are not looking to give some funds.
So I see no more questions. I think if any of you has something else they would like to ask Claudia or Lucy, otherwise we will, as I said, we will share their presentations, the recording of the session, and also your emails. If you'd like, Lucy and Claudia, we can share your emails in case people have questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
And don't hesitate to send messages through LinkedIn or to follow us on LinkedIn, of course, and to send questions if you have any other questions. We are really happy to contribute.
Great. Thank you very much, Claudia. Thank you to both Lucy and Claudia. It was, I think this was a really great way of concluding, our webinars, maybe also the year, because now maybe some of us are going to the summer. And yeah, thanks again. I'm really looking forward to exploring the subjects forward with the beginning of a new year and the new project. And yeah, thank you. And I wish you a nice rest of the day to you and to the attendees.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Claudia.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Lucy.